Welcome to the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. We don't shy away and keep secrets here. We empower you with education, telling you the truth about all things aesthetic medicine while encouraging you to be the best version of yourself. It's time to look great and feel good doing it. This is your host, mom, speaker, and board-certified physician, Dr. Judith Borger.
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 77 of the Aesthetic Doctor Podcast. Today, I have the immense pleasure to talk to you about sleep. Yes, you guys, sleep is so important. Sleep disturbances are so common, and I honestly say when I get a good night's sleep, my day is different. So we are talking with Dr. Afolabi-Brown today. She is a triple board-certified sleep physician and the founder of Restful Sleep MD. In her work, helps women and children prioritize sleep to achieve optimal health, wellness, and thrive to their fullest potential. Dr. Brown is also the best-selling author of Beyond Tired, a sleep physician's guide to solving your child's sleep problems for good. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Brown. Like I said in my introduction, I am so excited to have Dr. Afolabi-Brown with us today. So welcome, Dr. Brown. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here and love that you're on because we're going to talk about sleep today, the importance of sleep. And I am a huge proponent of sleep, which is so funny because I think in medicine and medical education, we spend so many years depriving our bodies of sleep. And I feel like ever since I found sleep, I cannot function without sleep. And I would just love to have you tell us, how did you get so interested and so educated in the sort of issue of sleep?
Yeah, no, it's so true. We would just run on empty throughout our careers or training and then maybe hit a wall. And I think that was what happened to me. I started off with burning the candle on both ends and also being a mom and doing so many things. And really, I was suffering while I was trying to be everything to everyone. And so I hit a wall. And so that, for me personally, was the beginning of a journey towards healing using sleep as a tool, I would say. And then I wanted to start teaching others how to do this because in my practice, so I did a pediatric training initially and then a pulmonary training. And then I was seeing parents coming exhausted, like zombies, the kids not sleeping, they not sleeping. And so I think when I combined all that, what was missing, what I was seeing in my patients, as well as my own personal journey and struggle with sleep, it was like, okay, I got to do this. So I went and pursued a sleep fellowship training. And then from there, really started really making sleep a thing, as I say.
I love it. I love it. And it is interesting because since I have really gotten regular sleep, and I know I'm one of the people that cannot function on 6, 7 hours. I'm like the 8 to 9 hours of sleep person. Like the sense of well-being is different. And the same in my kids, like they have a fairly strict bedtime and they're less cranky. They have more capacity to manage their emotions. They do better. But tell us about really, of course, these are my anecdotal examples, but really tell us about some of the major sort of studied scientific benefits of getting enough sleep.
Yeah, no, those same benefits you listed anecdotally, honestly, is what we see in the research. In terms of benefits, even from a brain perspective, many people think, oh, yeah, when you're asleep, your brain is resting. It turns out your brain is not necessarily resting. Your brain is pretty active. And what is going on is there is, first of all, just, memory consolidation and emotion regulation and filtration of what would say waste products from the surface of the brain that only takes place during sleep, during slow wave or deep sleep. So when you don't get those benefits, you start to have the lapses in memory, the irritability, the moodiness, and things like that. And then there's the learning and development. And if you think about it, initially as kids, there's kids sleep over sometimes up to 17 hours as newborns. And then that amount may decrease over time, but it just shows because their brain is undergoing rapid development that sleep is so critical at that stage. But it doesn't, the need for sleep doesn't change. The amount of sleep may change as we get older, but this is something that we need throughout our lives. And then hormone regulation. A lot of hormones are released during sleep. So growth hormone is one of them. Regulation of other hormones like insulin and thyroid hormones. All of those things are occurring during sleep, such that when we're not sleeping, we're not getting those benefits. And you'll hear people have increased risk of impaired glucose tolerance or diabetes or obesity, craving different calorie dense products in order to conserve energy, something that we see in people who are sleep deprived. And immune system regulation also occurs during sleep. In fact, there's a study that showed that if the shorter the amount of sleep you're getting, the more susceptible you have to getting the common cold, such that if you're getting anywhere from about 5 hours or 6 hours, you're almost 50% as likely to just get hit by even just the common cold. And also we see that with response to immunization. So if you don't sleep well and you get your routine, maybe flu shot or COVID shot, you're not as likely to get the full benefit of the vaccination if your immune system is down because you have poor sleep. And then there's a lot of literature on a higher rate of burnout and anxiety and depression and unfortunately suicidality when we don't sleep well. So lots of things in terms of the heart, your heart rate and a lot of your physiological processes actually do slow down during sleep. So when you don't get the benefit of good sleep, you have a high cortisol level, you can develop abnormal heart rhythms, you are at risk for things like strokes, hypertension, and things like that. So I would say from top all the way to bottom is affected by sleep overall.
And I also do aesthetic medicine, and it is interesting that even your skin regenerates itself, not only through all of the hormonal mechanisms that we've discussed that we all know impact skin health and skin glowingness, but some of the cellular repair mechanisms. So not only are you going to look less tired, but your skin is actually able to get rid of all of its waste and do its cellular metabolism during the night as well. So how much sleep do you recommend adults get?
So it's a range of 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And I think it really varies per person. Like you said, like you're not like a 7 hour person, right? There's some people who are 8 hour persons. There's some who are 9 hour persons. So it varies based on each person's needs, there's some genetic components to it. So if you're from a family of people who sleep a lot, you may potentially be someone who needs a lot more sleep. If you're from a family of what we call short sleepers, maybe you need a little less. I think the important thing to pay attention to is what your function is like for during the day, because if you have situations where you're waking up tired or you're sleepy during the day, you're like binging on caffeine and all of that, those kind of things, and you're only sleeping 7.5 hours, then I would say maybe increase it by 30 minutes. Or you're only sleeping 6.5 hours, I would say maybe go up to 7. So it varies, but the important thing is really paying attention to what your function is like during the day.
I love that. I love that. So tell me about the book. It's right behind you. We have a little copy of it, like a little picture of it in the episode as well, Beyond Tired, which I absolutely love because I think we're all wanting that, right? We want to get away of the beyond tired. And in the US, like in a lot of westernized culture, we have such a hustle culture that I think sometimes like sleep is that thing where it's almost glorified sometimes just cut out an hour of sleep and you'll get so much more done, but it's really like rest is where all the magic happens and where you regenerate and all of that stuff. So tell us about the book. How did it come to be that you wrote it? Who is it for?
Yeah, no, I love what you said. Like, it may feel like let's take the short route and cut off some sleep. Like, that's where we're wasting time. So people see sleep as almost like a waste of time sometimes. And also with that, almost like a badge of honor for me to say, oh yeah, look at me. I'm only 4 hours in and I'm functioning. Where are you? So I think that's something that many of us, especially professionals, struggle with. So Beyond Tired, it's the full title is Beyond Tired, a sleep physician's guide to solving your child's sleep problems for good. And the reason why I came up with that title was exactly what I hear in my clinic, in my practice, with my either in consultation with my patients or even with organizations, people saying, I'm exhausted. I'm so exhausted. I'm beyond tired. Like that, those are the words people gave me. So, so my clients gave me that title. And there are many reasons why you might be beyond tired. Very many times it's either poor quality sleep or not enough sleep. And as someone who has a pediatric background, I realize and I see it, the impact of a child's sleep or lack thereof on their parents. And so the book is really talking about kids' sleep, but also weaves in the parent perspective. So first of all, your child is not sleeping. That might be why you're not sleeping. So how do we get your child to sleep well so that you can sleep well? And so we share a lot around, of course, the science of sleep in detail, the benefits of sleep, what happens when they're not sleeping. And then we also talk about what are those different issues that can happen that get in the way of a child's sleep. Because most people say, oh yeah, I was told my child's sleep issues, they'll just outgrow it. Absolutely not. You want to make sure that if there's something, whatever sleep issue it is, has a name. And those are the things that I explain in detail in the book, as well as what you actually can do to address it. Because not every sleep issue will need to be addressed by a sleep physician. I am very well aware of that. But how do we make sure that things don't get, to the point where we're now in crisis mode? And really, that's what the book is about. And then it's also focused, there's a lot of focus also, especially on moms, again, because of my own personal journey and my story, and how moms can prioritize their own self-care and prioritize their own sleep to be better versions of themselves. So I have a chapter that's all dedicated to moms, to families, as well as a lot of just really evidence-based information on sleeping kids.
I love that. I love that because I do pediatric ER and what's now my side gig. We have a joke that if you wake mom up in the middle of the night, you have to come to the ER because so many times those 3, 4 a.m. visits, it's exactly that. As my kid wasn't sleeping, here we are. Please, of course, he has to have an ear infection. Of course, he has to have whatever. Give me the magic. And I think when you said that, I think it's so important, like you said, not only because it affects the whole family, but when we really are aware of the whole neuropsychiatric development of a child, like building those habits early in life can really benefit you and your family for a lifetime of thriving, right?
Absolutely. And the research we've seen that there's studies that show that those pervasive sleep problems, especially those occurring within those first few years of life, then progressively can become chronic sleep problems. So I'm sure many times you've heard people say, I'm an insomniac, I'm a bad sleeper, I've always been a bad sleeper, my child is a bad sleeper. There are some traits in there, one, of course, that are genetically driven. Some of them actually is almost like a culturing, right? So all of a sudden, this is what we know. And so the subconscious, and that's where when I talk a lot and treat people for insomnia, we're addressing those thoughts, those beliefs that make us define ourselves by this poor sleep and things like that. But addressing some of those issues very early and helping kids develop their own sleep confidence is something that they'll take throughout their lives.
I love that. I love that. So if you could share a couple of your best or most commonly seen sleep tips with our audience, would you just give them a couple of like takeaways of what are some things like the average person could maybe do to improve their sleep on the daily?
Yes. So I think the first big one I would say is consistency. One of the things you mentioned was you have a pretty strict bedtime and things, and I would say that's a game changer. It's funny you just said it in passing, but this is something that a lot of people are not even really practicing, and it's not intentional. It's just the fact that life happens, and so we get sleep when we get sleep. But especially for children and adults as well, we're really hardwired based on our circadian rhythm. And so that's that internal clock that really helps regulate your sleep-wake cycle. So if that is disrupted either by inconsistency or very rapidly changing time zones, for instance, it's going to cause some physiological disadvantages. So the circadian rhythm actually regulates things like your hormone secretion, hormone regulation, immune system, some other systems and processes. So when it's consistently disrupted, then you're going to just get those, you're going to get issues as a result of that. So consistent wake up time, consistent sleep time, I think is very important. I would say also another thing that's important, especially because I see a lot of people who have mind racing. Even kids now are crying because they can't shut off their minds at bedtime. Again, because there's such a there's a mental health crisis pretty much. So having a routine is such a game changer. And that routine, what's included in those routines are elements that are calming. So what does that look like? It might be you're taking a bath, you're reading, you're journaling, you're practicing gratitude. So finding those calming elements, because that will really serve as a buffer between your very busy day and bedtime. So I would say that's also another thing that would be very important. And then a third one would be making sure that you optimize your bedroom environment. There's so many people who say, oh yeah, the room is dark. And then when I'm doing an assessment as part of my evaluations of their bedroom, you're seeing light just creeping in through the sides or under the door, and very little light is enough to disrupt sleep. So you want to make sure your room is optimized. It's cool, it's dark, it's noise free, and things like that. Now, if you're at a point where you're doing all the things, you're following all the sleep hygiene tips, and you're seeing that there's still issues, you're waking up either unrefreshed or you're waking up for prolonged periods of time, and that's either you or your child, or you're waking up multiple times at night for no clear reason, that's when you probably want to talk to someone, because then you might actually have an underlying sleep disorder which needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I love that. Two things I was going to quickly ask you about, and
Mhm.
maybe for you it's a given, but you didn't quite mention electronics. And I'm sure as a sleep physician, and so just
Yeah.
for completeness sake, I do
Mhm.
want to mention that, of course, electronics and scrolling in bed is about the worst
Mhm.
thing you can do for your sleep. The same, keeping the TV on. So
Mhm.
please, for completeness sake,
Yes.
give me the speech on
Abs
electronics so we can just
yes.
make sure that everybody gets reminded of that. And it's not like she didn't mention that.
Yeah. So I'm gonna put that under the dark environment, a phone, the TV, whatever electron, whether it's your laptop or your computer or video game, that does not constitute a dark environment. And there are many reasons why we always say you want to minimize the views and the exposures to devices for three main reasons. One is the blue light we often hear about. So the lot of these devices, your phone, your laptop, and things like that, it emits blue light. And so what that blue light will do is that it essentially suppresses your brain melatonin production. And your brain produces the sleep hormone, melatonin, and melatonin responds to darkness. So your brain doesn't know whether it's natural light or artificial light. All it sees is light, and especially something like blue wavelength light that comes from our phones, and it sends signals that might delay that melatonin production. The other way by which electronics impact sleep is through what we call the activity, the increased stimulation you get from scrolling on your phone, from sending messages in a group chat, from reading an email that's now very stimulating for you, or from watching the news, which is now very disturbing. So those activities cannot be part of your routine. Remember what I said about routine. You're going to try to eliminate things that are not calming from that routine. That routine within the 30, 60 minutes before bed should be things that are calming, things that are relaxing. Those things on your phone most times are not relaxing and are not calming. So you want to limit its use around that bedtime routine time, which is 30 to 60 minutes. And then finally, the third thing about electronics, I would say, is around what we call the displacement theory, right? You think about it, you're on your bed, you're on your phone, and then you're scrolling and you're like, okay, maybe I'll just spend 5 minutes just to catch up on stuff. And many of us have experienced that. An hour later, you're now very mad at yourself because you've taken up an hour of your sleep time with scrolling or being on your phone. So those are the three main things. But when you think about how do I optimize darkness, anything that emits light, including blue light from a phone, belongs outside of the room. How do I optimize my bedtime routine? Anything that's not calming, including spending time on news, social media, all of that, it needs to be out of that sleep period. Then you'll be golden.
Awesome. The other thing that I've started doing with my kids that has been really magical, and it's probably that same thing with the calming, is we've started listening to sleep meditations together. And it's to the
Yeah.
point that they now ask for it. And it's really
Mhm.
like cute. Like I use the ones on the Peloton app. I know lots of people use the Calm app. But
Mhm.
again, I've found I feel good now because you reinforce a lot of my parenting choices. We do our gratitude in bed, and then we read, and then we have started adding meditations about 2 years ago. And it's just this thing of take a deep breath in, deep breath out. And some of the ones for the kids that have this like whole, like almost like a stuffed animal and feel it on your belly and feel it rise and fall. And that has really helped us a lot.
That's beautiful. I think that is a great way because, again, with this mind racing and insomnia and things like that, when you can incorporate relaxation strategies, calming activities before bed, it definitely goes a very long way.
So tell us, obviously you have the book out, which I totally love because it's a low cost way for people everywhere really to go on Amazon or their other favorite website and order the book and get all of your tips and tricks. But other than that, if somebody is interested in working with you more, where can they connect with you? Where can they find you? Do you do newsletters, podcasts, all of the things?
Yes, and all of the things. So in addition to getting my book from Amazon, you can find me on social media. I try to post content on there as regularly as possible, and that's at Restful Sleep MD. My website is also a place that's pretty active. I have a blog on there. You have the link to my YouTube channel, and just a whole lot of content both for kids as well as moms. If you're in certain states and you're looking for a sleep physician, I have a sleep clinic. It's called the Restful Sleep Place. And this is really for people who are struggling with sleep issues. You've done the sleep hygiene stuff and it's just not working. I see patients in California, in New Jersey, as well as Pennsylvania. So you have the benefit of a remote appointment if that works for you. And then I offer consultation and speaking as well to organizations. Say you run I don't know, you have a program, a hospital, a team that you lead, and you want to optimize wellness and you want us to come and do a workshop. That's another service I provide. But if you go to my website, all that information is on there.
And of course, all of it will be in the show notes. So if you're driving, please don't try to write it down. Just go to the show notes. We have all the links to website, YouTube channel, Instagram, as well as the website to the book. So again, Dr. Afolabi-Brown, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your wisdom with our listeners.
Thank you so much for having me. I really had a great time.
Thank you for listening to the Aesthetic Doctor podcast with Dr. Judith Borger. We'd love to connect with you outside of the show. Follow Dr. Borger on Instagram at Dr. Borger and find more online and ways to work with Dr. Borger at www.theaestheticdoctor.com. Until next time, be well.